readers, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my weekend books, coming to you on a Tuesday instead of a Monday because yesterday in internet time was International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and so I did a whole post that I posted yesterday for that, some books inspired by that, and so today is my weekend books, and I've had a rough week. I'll talk to you about it. I don't know that there's a reason about it besides my selections. I will say this. My TBR that I did a post on last week, I'm demolishing that. I'm going to start over. There are probably 2 books I'm going to keep, 3 actually, from that pile, and the rest I'll just choose like I normally do on what I feel like. But I did learn some things about myself in reading this week. One is that it really negatively affects my reading if I have to put a book down longer than I plan to, like longer than a day. Sometimes I can still push through, other times I can't. But my first book for this week was one I was highly anticipating, Grady Hendrix's Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. I don't know what I rated this. I think it was 4 stars, but this is an example. I put it down. I started reading on Friday, but then on Saturday evening I had book club, and I didn't want to pick it up Saturday morning because I knew I would skip book club because I would read this until I was finished. So got home from book club, there was football on, and then I didn't end up picking it up until until either late Sunday, I think. And so that, I lost my momentum. Usually I pick up a book, I don't always finish it in one night, pick it up, read until it's time to go to bed, and then the next day when I come home from work, I pick it up again, and that works great for me. But let me tell you about this. There's power in a book. They call them wayward girls, loose girls, girls who grew up too fast, and they're sent to the Wellwood house in St. Augustine, Florida, where unwed mothers are hidden by their families to have their babies in secret, to give them up for adoption, and most important of all, to forget any of it ever happened. 15-year-old Fern arrives at the home in the sweltering summer of 1970, pregnant, frightened, and alone. And I'll tell you this, I was sweating along with Fern because I could really feel the humidity and the bugs. It was just great atmosphere. Under the watchful eye of the stern Miss Wellwood, she meets a dozen other girls in the same predicament. There's Rose, a hippie who insists she's going to find a way to keep her baby and escape to a commune, and Zinnia, a budding musician who plans to marry her baby's father, and Holly, a wisp of a girl, barely 14, mute and pregnant by no one knows who. Everything the girls eat, every moment of their waking day, and everything they're allowed to talk about is strictly controlled by the adults who claim they know what's best for them. Then Fern meets a librarian who gives her an occult book about witchcraft, and power is in the hands of the girls for the first time in their lives. But power can destroy as easily as it creates, and it's never given freely. There's always a price to be paid, and it's usually paid in blood. Now, Grady Hendrix is an auto-buy author for me. I want to talk about one thing in here that bothered me from a reader's experience. Now, when I looked this up online before I got my copy, a lot of people were complaining about a man writing women. And in the introduction, or why did a childless middle-aged man write this book, he explains why. And he talks about how he had 2 family members who he found out after college, after he got out of college, that revealed they'd been sent to maternity homes and had given their children up. One had a child who wanted to reconnect. The other one never reconnected with her child. So he talks about in this introduction, it's only like 3 pages, his process for writing this book, and I appreciated that. So, a man writing a woman, a pregnant woman at that, did not bother me in this case. It may in others, but he explained it, I rolled with it. The thing that bothered me is, for the majority of this book, you're in Fern's head. But about here, all of a sudden, you switch to a different POV, and it happens again, and it felt very abrupt to me. Again, I had to put this down for more than a day, so it could be that I lost my momentum, and so it felt more abrupt than it would have if I'd read it straight through. But overall, I adored this book. I really loved it. I gobbled up, I probably, that first night, got about that much through. So, a couple hundred pages. I love this. I highly recommend it. I think I've said Grady Hendrix is an auto-buy for me. And his books, in my opinion, get progressively better and better. I can't wait. Like, now I'm sad that I read this and I don't have anything to look forward to by him again. I do have some of his older books. I did not always like him. I read My Best Friend's Exorcism, apparently, I've totally forgotten about it, I had, in 2017. And then I kept seeing it after I moved into this house. I kept seeing it online or on social media. And I had a bad feeling about it. And so I ended up buying the book. And then when I went to put it in Goodreads, I was like, oh shit, I've already read this. And I gave it 1 star back then. Second time around, I loved it. I think I had just was in a different place in my life, in my reading life. But let's talk about where we are in my reading life. 3 DNFs after the Hendrix book. I'm not going to read the summaries of these. Oh. Yeah, I'm not going to read the summaries of these. I might on 2 of them. But the first one I won't. Because it's about 1916. This is a novel of the Irish Rebellion by Morgan Llewellyn. I've had this years and never got to it. And she wrote this in the 90s, and I made a comment, already the language and writing style, maybe it's just hers, from the 90s is starting to feel dated. And then I asked, is it just her writing style? And ultimately, although it's funny, I found one line in this is everything has a price, and that kind of was like, just like in Witchcraft or Wayward Girls. So this is a novel about the Irish Rebellion. And ultimately, like I said, it was her writing style. It felt dated, it felt kind of slow, and it felt to me like she was trying so hard to be historically accurate that it came at the expense of the story. Now, I read a lot of World War II books, novels, and sometimes they dismiss historical accuracy for the sake of the story. And I don't like that either. I feel like there's a way to make both happen. Have a good story and be as historically accurate as possible. I'll let small things slide. But I think there's a way to marry the two that just, without it being so dry. I've read nonfiction books that were less dry. So the next DNF was an impulse buy, and I'm done with that. No, I'm not. That was Lane Fargo's The Favorites. In theory, this had everything I wanted. They had a part of a little snippets of an interview from a TV show called The Shaw and Roca Story. She might not have a famous name, funding, or her family's support, but Katerina Shaw has always known that she was destined to become an Olympic skater. When she meets Heath Rocha, a lonely kid stuck in the... I don't know if it's Rocha or Roca. I'm going to go with Roca. A lonely kid stuck in the foster care system, their instant connection makes them a formidable duo on the ice, clinging to skating and each other. To escape their turbulent lives, Kat and Heath go from childhood sweethearts to champion ice dancers, captivating the world with their scorching chemistry, rebellious style, and roller coaster relationship. Until a shocking incident at the Olympic Games brings their partnership to a sudden end. As the 10-year anniversary of their final skate approaches, an unauthorized documentary reignites the public fascination with Shaw and Roca, claiming to uncover the real story through interviews with their closest friends and fiercest rivals. Kat wants nothing to do with the documentary, but she can't stand the thought of someone else defining her legacy. So, after a decade of silence, she's telling her story, from the childhood tragedies that created her all-consuming bond with Heath to the clash of desires that tore them apart. Sensational rumors have haunted their every step for years, but the truth may be even more shocking than the headlines. And again, for me, it was the writing style. I'm sensing a pattern here, but so the TV show bits, which were only 1 or 2, maybe 3 pages, loved them. Flowed very well from them. Kat's story, her chapters, which are much longer, I guess I got bored, and I didn't care. I'm not sure even what the scandal was. I didn't care. It was just work to read it, and she lives up in maybe Chicago, I don't remember, but she's over descriptive in that I want to be able to see the town, but I don't need to know the name of every street, and that's just really kind of I felt like I was having to work to read it, and I don't mind to work to read a book. I had to work for something to answer for, but this was not, I felt that the juice wasn't going to be worth the squeeze. If you read it and loved it, I'm glad for you. It just, especially coming after 1916, I needed something to pick up the pace a bit. Now we're on the 3rd DNF, and there is every chance that I could pick up Clever Little Thing by Helena Eklund later and have it work for me. But this time around, it was not working. I got, again, a couple pages in, and I just felt tired. The pacing was slower than I'd like, and so it starts, no, I can't tell you that. It starts out good and promising, but then it just takes too long to get anywhere where anything really significant is happening for me. And again, this is the second example where I put the book down, and for whatever reason, I didn't pick it up again soon enough. And so after that, it was just I lost my momentum, and I did not have the steam to keep going with this book. So at this point, this was night before last. This was Friday night, and I was like, I can't. However, the premise is good. I'm not going to rule out trying this again in a year or so. Charlotte's daughter, Sadie, sorry. I was thinking about Sadie Hartman. Charlotte's daughter, Stella, is sensitive and brilliant, perhaps even a genius, but a recent change in her behavior has alarmed her mother. Following the sudden death of Stella's babysitter, Blanca, the once disruptive and antisocial child has become docile and agreeable. But what's unsettling is that she has begun to mirror Blanca's personality, from Blanca's repetitive phrases to her accent to fierce cravings for Armenian meat stew after being raised a vegetarian. Maybe that child was hungry, and that was why she was having temper tantrums. Charlotte is pregnant with her second child and depleted and sick with the pregnancy. She's convinced that Blanca herself is somehow responsible for Stella's transformation. But how could Blanca, dead, still be entwined in their lives? Has Blanca somehow possessed Stella? Has Stella become Blanca? As Charlotte becomes increasingly obsessed, she's sure that only she can save her daughter, even though it's soon clear that her husband believes this is all in Charlotte's head. I kind of got that far with it. So I wanted to like this. I think there's a chance if I wait a year, maybe even 6 months, and I pick this thing up again, I may enjoy it if I get the timing right. But for whatever reason, it just did not work for me now. And when I have three, I rarely have three back-to-back DNFs. I really need something that I know is gonna work. Well, my friend Katie has been reading backwards this trilogy. I follow her on Goodreads. And so I saw her read the third book, then the second, and I was like, you know, I think I want to pick those up. So I picked them up at the Barnes & Noble, and I started with book 1. And that is When in Rome by Sarah Adams. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a book haul, and tell you all about this book. This is a cute little rom-com set in Rome, Kentucky. She is a famous music singer, and she kind of runs away for a couple weeks from her life so she can have a break before she has to go on tour for 9 months. He is a pie baker and owns a pie shop that used to be his grandmother's, and he's been burned by love before and doesn't want anything to do with Amelia Rose. He's Noah, she's Amelia. This was so cute. I did not finish it in one night. I finished it Saturday night, started it Friday night, finished it Saturday night, but I got through over the halfway mark on this after putting down Clever Little Things. So it was like 6 o'clock or so before I started this. If the overall writing style works for me, there are some small things that irk me that I'll let slide. Like, this is not an example from this book, but like, his gaze burned down on her like embers. I hate that shit. It's overly flowery. It's unnecessary. She does this 1 or 2 times, but not as badly as that. But again, I could slide through it. The other thing that irks me about romance is the insta-love, and that is just me. I have to get past that because, one, in 300 pages, there's going to be some insta-love. But two, I also know people. We had an individual who used to work for us, and we would get 30 days leave from being overseas a year, every 6 months. And every time he came back from his 30 days leave, he would be engaged to someone new that he just met while he was on vacation. So, it's me. The insta-love, I need to get over being irritated by that because insta-love is a thing, and it's 300 pages. If they didn't fall in love till the very end, it would make for a boring book. There is one thing that I knew really early on, like this early on, about a major part of the plot, but I was fine. Another thing I really liked about this is that there was some trauma in Noah's life and his sister's lives. And his oldest sister, tomorrow in the video, I say she's his middle sister. I didn't find out until this far, I hadn't finished it when I recorded that it was his oldest sister. I forgot. He sits him down and says, look, we need to get over our trauma. I release you from me holding you responsible for things that scare me, and you need to release me as well. It was just really great writing. I had not read Sarah Adams before, but I'll get to it. Anyway, so the 2 books I finished this week were really good. Even with, putting Hendrix down, next time I'll know. Just hold off. Don't start to read it until I know I can read it either in 1 or 2 sittings. Let's see where we are. So, I actually am reading another book via audio. So, I said yesterday I did a video on books about the Holocaust. One of the books that I found on a list that I was searching, not from the Holocaust Museum, but it's a book with 2 short stories. It's Cynthia Ozick's The Shawl. So there are 2 short stories in here. One called The Shawl, where Rosa, the main character, is in a concentration camp with her baby, and the other story is probably 40 years later, and it's called Rosa, and that's the one I'm on right now listening to. I got about an hour and 17 minutes left. And now Rosa is in Florida, like I said, about 30, 40 years later. Don't quote me on that. So the shawl was really moving. Rosa is a lot longer. It's like an hour and a half. The shawl was like maybe 30 minutes. I don't know. So I finished the shawl yesterday. Anyway, I'm really enjoying this. I put Bolivar on pause to start that because it's only a couple of hours. But this coming week, I have to really push hard on Bolivar because I want to get it finished by the end of the month. And that means I've got a lot left to listen to. So probably what I'll do in the evenings is spend a half an hour or so listening to it while I do chores because I want to finish this by the end of the month. This has been really interesting. It's about a part of the world, Venezuela right now, that I knew nothing about. And I've learned a lot about Spain and Venezuela that I had no clue of. So, purse book. I'd like to be able to show you that, but it is missing in action right now. It's not in my purse. It's not in my lunch bag where I usually keep it. Nowadays I usually keep it in my lunch bag because sometimes purse books can get big, but it is not there. Maybe if I can't find it in the next couple of days, I'm probably going to DNF it for now until I can find it and then start it over at a later date. But if I don't find it, I'm going to, on the 1st of February, pick up probably this book, and there's a reason for it. My next nonfiction book will be The Women with Silver Wings by Katherine Sharp Landeck. This is the inspiring true story of the women Air Force service pilots of World War II. And, while I'm on one, make sure I get this correct. Screenshots. Hold on. Sorry.
We have some breaking news right now.
Okay, so
we have some breaking news right now. The Air Force has officially scrapped a video. We have some breaking news right now.
So, yesterday in the news, AP reports that the Air Force scraps course that used videos of Tuskegee Airmen and female World War II pilots. So, since they have done that, I will be reading a book about female World War II pilots. They claim that these videos were shown to Air Force troops as part of DEI courses they took during basic military training. But, God forbid we learn anything about women or Black Americans
now, the Air Force
or anybody of color. I almost poked myself in my eye. Okay, sorry, let's find out about this. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in December 1941, Cornelia Fort was already in the air. At 22, Fort had escaped Nashville's debutante scene for a fresh start as a flight instructor in Hawaii. She and a student were in the middle of their lesson when the bombs began to fall, and they barely made it back to the ground that morning. When the U.S. Army Air Forces put out a call for women pilots to aid the war effort, Fort was one of the first to respond. She became one of just over 1,100 women from across the nation to make it through the Army's rigorous selection process and earn their silver wings. For the remarkable aviators who would become the Women Air Force Service Pilots, or WASP, flying offered freedom, a community of like-minded peers, and a chance to contribute to the war effort, as well as an opportunity to show the world that women pilots were just as skilled and able as men. In The Women with Silver Wings, historian Katherine Sharp Landeck takes us into their lives on the ground and in the air. The women ferried pursuits and bombers across the country and trained male pilots for service abroad. work that was exhilarating but dangerous. 38 WASP would not survive the war. But even taking into account these tragic losses, the program seemed to be a resounding success until, with the tides of war turning and fewer male pilots needed in Europe, Congress clipped the women's wings. The program was disbanded, the women sent home, but the bonds they forged never failed, and over the next few decades, they came together to fight for recognition as the military veterans they were, and for their place in history. Okay, so that is next up. February 1, I'm going to start this. Whether or not I find the Unwomanly Face of War. If I do find that, I'll push to try to get that finished this week. If I don't find that, then I'll just have a break. But next up on the fiction side is something I rarely do. I'm going to read number 2 in the Rome, Kentucky series. I was looking for a book to read earlier today. I hadn't started this yet. Well, I did read the first page. And that's when I was looking at my TBR pile, and I was like, I don't want to read that. I don't want to read that. I don't want to read that. I think I've kind of got a little, can't think of the right word, hesitant to start something that is not light because I had 3 DNFs back to back. I need a little success here. So I read the first page of this and I was like, I'm in. Plus I loved Women in Rome. And again, tomorrow I'll talk to you a little bit more about this, but this one is centered around Annie Walker, Noah's sister, his youngest sister, and one of Amelia's bodyguards. So it's fake dating. I love fake dating. That is it for me. I got nothing else to say. I hope that this coming week is a better reading week for me. I hope you have a good reading week. If you've read any of these, even if you've read any of my DNFs, I'd love to hear from you, especially if you liked them. I'd like to hear what you liked about them, because maybe I can come at it with a different perspective next time I try to read those 3. Anywho, as always, thank you for sticking with me on my journey. Happy reading.